Today in the Savage Goose Show, we're going to take a really hard look at Savage Worlds combat and the way that combat is taught and the way that we approach it. But first, before we get into that topic, we're going to start with the newsletter as always. So, heading over to Pinnacle's newsletter this week, the first big piece of news is there's a new shopping website. They've kind of teased this website already a little bit, but they've kind of done a lot more with it now, and there's a big release going on right now for the new website. That new website is shop.peginc.com. So they are moving away from their old site into this new site that is being powered by Shopify, and you can now go over there. It's got a much better interface. I still think they've got some work to do, not only with like adding stuff in, but I think there's some like tweaks they need to make for accessibility and things. But things are looking really good and much better than their old site, much more modern looking for sure. So take a look at that as part of the the deal and it's part of the excitement from now through March 15th. So for the next month, over a month, they'll be offering free shipping for all orders over $50 and free international shipping for all orders over $200. This is a pretty good deal. I remember there was a deal a while back that I jumped on that was free shipping for orders over $100. So honestly, guys, free shipping over on orders over $50 is actually a pretty good deal when you're buying from a local, not local, a small business or smaller business like Pinnacle, and you are supporting them more directly. You are going to get the PDF version and the physical version for anything you order that is physical. So just take a look at that and check that out. There is going to be some stuff that's still being added that you can still order through the old site, but they're running both sites simultaneously for a little bit while they get all the stuff moved over to Shopify. So look forward to that for the next month as they kind of get that transition going and finishing up. Next week, this was supposed to be last week, and it's now going to be next week, that the 30-year Deadlands anniversary Kickstarter is going to occur. So next Tuesday, likely at high noon. That's usually when these campaigns start, high noon Eastern time, not Western time, though that would make sense. If not, Pinnacle, feel free to change that. That feels kind of good. Make it like noon in Arizona or something. That makes sense. That sounds fun. But either way, this is going to include a bunch of stuff that's going to be to celebrate the 30th anniversary. There's going to be a new box set. There's going to be a new core rule book. I should say core rule book. Yeah, new core rule book is the right word. There's going to be a 30th anniversary celebration book and a bunch more. We're going to get into that next week, though, as next week's live stream is going to be about taking a look at that Kickstarter and taking a look at everything that's coming in the Kickstarter and seeing what kind of goodies we can expect. Moving on from that, we're also going to look at the Savage Universe stream this week. This stream this week is going to be with with James Smith, owner and operator of Night Smith Games LLC. So if you're familiar with Knights of the Smith Dinner Table, there is a actual play that plays a lot of Savage Worlds content, a lot of Deadlands and other stuff. They do one-shots of different things. So if you're looking for some actual plays of different things, check them out. They're going to be one of the best places to go hear more about Savage Worlds, was hear some Savage Worlds actual plays, etc. They're going to be talking about one of their current actual play series called Altered Morality, which is going to be in the Necessary Evil campaign. And they'll be talking to Jam at 10 p.m. Eastern time Thursday night. I'm going to be in bed, and so I'm not going to be able to join everybody. But check that out. And I do really enjoy going back and watching the old streams even afterwards, just to hear what's going on in the Savage Worlds community. So if you want to know what's going on, come join this stream and go watch those streams, because that's basically the two of the biggest sources of information about what's going on in the community, as well as like things like the Reddit and the newsletter. So if you want to join this newsletter, do that too. Honoring Kevin Sambita and Palladium Books. So if you're a fan of Rares for Savage Worlds, which I know a lot of you are, I think it's cool. It's out there. I'm glad it's available. I haven't really played any of it, so I can't really say anything. But you should plan a trip to the Detroit Historical Museum, located in the city's Cultural Center Historic District. Cultural Center Historic District. There we go. Check out the exciting World of Palladium exhibit, now open in the Auditorium Showcase. So big exhibit about Palladium and all the stuff going on that in Detroit. I need to figure out when that's ending, because Detroit's not too far away from my parents. My parents are in northwestern Ohio, so I may have to go up that way. Now through September 19th. Okay, so it'll be up there for a while, so I can go over the summer. That will definitely be part of my vacation trip plans for Ohio, is to go check out this exhibit in Detroit. That sounds awesome. So if you're in Detroit area, or if you're going to be in the Detroit area, you should go check out this exhibit on the world of Palladium and everything, or the worlds of Palladium rather, and everything going on with Palladium and all those fun little details, especially if you're a big Risk fan. So what's happening right now in the crowdfunding reports? We have Risk Europa. It has finished shipping, and so for international, we are same thing for Deadlands Battle Northwest, and the same thing for Deadlands Lost Colony, where all the Americas, all the US has been shipped. They're just doing international stuff at this point. The Doomguard font files have been delivered, and Pledge Manager is open if you want to get on Doomguard, the board game that should be delivered sometime this summer. Dark Ages Pledge Manager is open. I'm hoping that we get it by the end of the year. I think we should. I think we'll probably get it by like fall, something like about around fall. And then Pathfinder Carrying Crown feedback has now closed, so you should probably expect that the Pledge Manager will be open at some point soon. But the next Kickstarter is next week, so look forward to that. 30 years of Deadlands. I'm currently working on a 30-year video, 30 years of history of video of Deadlands. So I'm trying to say, if I want to get it done, I need to get that done by next Tuesday. I think I want to have it out, I think, before the Kickstarter launches. So I'll have to work on that. I have it recorded, but I need to get it edited and out there. I feel like I want to do a good job though too, so it might take some time. So yeah. All right. Well, anyways, take a look at that. That should be something to look forward to. And now let's go over and talk about some new products that have come out in the past 2 weeks, since we didn't do a show last week. The first thing is 9 Worlds one-shot adventure Bad Blood. This is specifically the Foundry VTT adventure module that we're looking at here. 9 Worlds, if you don't know, is a cyberpunk Norse mythology game. So I think Vikings in a cyberpunk landscape. And you can kind of see here, like, yeah, it looks so cool. I've been on a very much like a neon kick lately. Like I'm trying to do like everything synthwave, neon, like colors and everything, like the purples and the purples and the blues and everything like that. So I'm very excited about this. I blame Street Wolves, by the way, 100% for getting me onto this like synthwave, like a retro vibe. I started retro gaming now. I have like a whole entire like CRT TV set up now with like controllers and everything. It's a problem. I want to get like neon signs like everywhere. I have these like LED strips to go around, and they're like all doing purple and stuff. Anyways, point being is that I think this looks really cool. I'm looking forward to this coming out, and I hope it comes out soon. It's been around for a bit now for the what's it called, Jumpstart, but we are still waiting for the official release of it, and I'm still very, very excited. So look forward to that. If you're interested in jumping on that before the actual release and you want to get like a feel for the game and system ahead of time, you can get the Jumpstart and you can get this VTT adventure module, and that'll be all ready for you as well. The next thing is Setting List 5. So Setting List is a series of different things from the Adventurers Guild, from I believe all from Christian Mers, and they are new setting rules that he's come up with. And this is now the 5th one. This is part of the FFF February, that is the Fast Furious Fun in February, where it's a creator jam, if you will, to create a bunch of stuff for Savage Worlds through the Adventurers Guild, part of the Discord server project. So if you want to take a look at the Discord server, I recommend you do that. Join the discussions there, but also take a look forward to all these fabulous FFFF February things that are going on. The setting list rules have been really good from what I have seen in the past. I haven't gotten around to getting this one yet or looking through it, but they are usually pretty fun, and I love setting rules. I keep talking about how one of the things I want to work on soon is a video talking about the modularity of Savage Worlds and how modular it is. There's kind of a little preview of that coming up in one of my videos soon, but it's not really like it's not specifically necessarily like the full on like this is why Savage Worlds is so cool because of how modular it is. So look forward to that. But point being, if you want some setting rules to kind of give you some more ideas for how you can run your game at your table for Savage Worlds, take a look at that. The next thing here is a micro setting called the setting is called something else, but the Vestia, that's the name of the setting. But the adventure is called Echoes of Silence. It's going to give you basically it's a one shot, right? Grab it, pick it up. It's going to have a new setting rule. It's going to have some new edges, and I think it comes with some pre-made characters. Maybe not. Nope, just some campaign seeds. It's an introduction to the world, a setting rule. Yeah, So little micro setting that you can play in to get a feel for something else. I like to see these like micro settings because they honestly give you like a vibe. They kind of get you the preliminary vibe of what the world is about, and then it lets you just kind of expand it from there. And as well as some campaign seeds as well to give you like some like little bits of lore, but it's not giving you so much that you feel like if you miss something, you're messing up, that you're like going against lore. At least that's how I feel sometimes. Like when I ran games in Forgotten Realms, if I didn't get it lore accurate, I felt terrible. Or if I really stressed, I should say. I was like stressed out that I didn't like get it lore accurate. Because what if someone else knows better than me or something like that? Not that people I was playing with knew anything about Forgotten Realms, so it wasn't really a problem. Anyways, if this looks interesting to you, check it out. It's only 50 cents, and it's supporting the Adventurers Guild, which I like it supporting for multiple reasons. One, because it's the community itself. It's something that we can just do without having to like. We need like some level of permission, but like there are rules around it, but we can really just kind of make whatever we want and put it out there for people to see, and support that effort. And it also supports Pinnacle themselves as well, so that's great. Last thing is a jumpstart called Aether Adrift. So this is they call it the test flight edition, but I believe it's just a it's a test flight edition. But maybe I thought it was a jumpstart. Maybe it's not a adventure start. Either way, it's a sci-fi setting on a world of floating islands inspired by games with super fighting robots, amnesiac droids, etc., etc. So it looked interesting. I haven't gotten a chance to look super deep into it, but core idea looks interesting. Definitely a little bit. I'm not gonna say goofy, but like a little bit more cartoonish. Cartoonish. Yeah, I'm gonna go with cartoonish. Cartoonish aesthetic going on. I'm not sure if that's the goal of the feeling of the setting itself, but either way, it looks interesting enough to have released. Sorry, it looked at least interesting enough for me to mention it on the channel. So take a look at that, and I'll try to remember to put things down below, but we'll see. It is 340 pages, so if you're looking for content, it's got a lot of content. Alrighty. All right, so looking, they were doing the new products, Kickstarters. Starbeards is ending on Friday, February 14th. So if you're looking for something to get someone who likes hairy men in space who are mining rock for Valentine's Day, here's your chance. Go do that. But seriously, Starbeards is a sci-fi setting where you play as dwarves, as members of Damn It. I did do an interview with the guys over at 15 Goat Games who are working on this project. If you want to check that out, you can go back to that live stream and learn more. I'm not gonna get too deep into this, but I highly recommend you check it out. They are fully funded. Another one that we have also interviewed a couple weeks ago was Occult City. This is currently going on Kickstarter that ends on Thursday, February 26th. This is superpower horror, or specifically a pulp superhero horror role-playing game using Savage Worlds. I will kind of just from that. This game is going to require the core rulebook, the Superpowers Companion, and the Horror Companion. Although I do wonder, I've been meaning to ask the guys over at Doghouse Rules if they plan on asking Pinnacle for permission to use stuff using the new licensing options they have. So Pinnacle announced a couple weeks ago there's some new licensing options. That means that people can now license parts of the companions to put in their book, so they don't have to like require the whole book just for like a small part of it, or they don't have to rewrite a setting rule or rewrite a rule for a power or an edge or something like that. They just have like a few they want to pick out from those books. They can put them right in, which I think is really nice. So take a look at that. I take a look at the Kickstarter. The link should be down in the description below. I'm gonna have to go back through afterwards and make sure everything's up. I had a busy day today, but do check out this Kickstarter because it looks awesome. The art looks great. The stuff from Doghouse Rules is almost always amazing. Carl Kiesler works with them, and his layout design is amazing. If you look at I'd say like half of the Savage Worlds books out there, their layout is done by Carl. So take a look at that for sure. And then coming next week is going to be the 30th anniversary for Deadlands. This is the art piece I grabbed for that. I'll update it next week when we have some more art for that. But 30th anniversary of Deadlands is a exciting Kickstarter that I'm really looking forward to, because I'm looking forward to seeing all the fun stuff that we're going to be doing, and hopefully we get some insights into the other projects coming out later this year. Also coming sometime this year is the Vermilion Outlaw Girls and Cannibal Elves. We are running through Vermilion right now. And one of the things my players have said is like, yeah, I really like the setting. They do keep saying that they wish that after they've played in the setting, they wish they could like rebuild their character again because they feel like they didn't build it the way they wanted to or whatever. But because of the way the setting is, but that's okay. I think they're learning to not be the face of the group because they are an outsider. So that's part of the problem. But I love the artwork from Vermilion, and I love the setting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like coming up sometime this year, hopefully soon. Also coming soon is Phase World, which is a Rifts Dimension Savage setting. So this is from Palladium. This is going to be licensed from Palladium to use Phase World, but it's not being done by Pinnacle. This is done by Star Anvil Studios. I think this is really interesting because this is Palladium licensing to the same game engine, but to two different publishers within that game engine. Obviously, one is the official Savage Worlds Pinnacle Entertainment Group, but the other one is now a third-party Star Anvil Studios third-party license holder for Phase World, and I'm super excited for that. I hope this means that we see some like expansion into I don't know how the risk settings work as far as like is this like the multiverse type deal or something else. But either way, I think it's super exciting to see more of these kind of like collaborations and licensees, to see other IPs kind of brought into Savage Worlds officially. Things like Solomon Kane, Riffs, Pinnacle, now Phase World, all those kinds of things. For Robotech, still waiting for that Robotech Omnibus to come out. So looking forward to that. I look forward to this Kickstarter. I think the art looks great. Because it's an established setting, it means that we should have plenty of art that he's going to be able, Brandon over at Starbound Studios is going to be able to pull in to the new books. Well, we will be talking with Brandon at least sometime this month. I think it's due in 2 weeks about Phase World, so look forward to that. And yeah, I'm excited to see what Brandon's going to be bringing for us. All right, so today our main topic is Savage Worlds broken? And before we get into that, I just want to look down and just kind of take some time to talk about the comments in the chat here. Let's see here. Monkey says he's sipping some stuff and that he is looking for his 20th anniversary book, or has it. So might as well use that. I do wish I would have gotten some of those books. And John Doom just says it's the greatest show, which immediately made me go from the Greatest Showman. It's the greatest show. Don't want to get demonetized and all that, but and then I do want to say hi to Frank. I know Frank, you're probably not here anymore. Nice to say hi. I really appreciate you being here. Check out Frank's channel, not Frank Joseph Hall. That's not his channel. His channel is What is Tabletop. They him and Charles talk about tabletop design, and I like the way like they're coming from it, because there's two channels I follow when it comes to tabletop design. Three really, I guess. This one hits are his What is Tabletop, and Tales from Elsewhere. We had Pete on from Tales from Elsewhere talking about his game, Tales from Elsewhere, Clock World, and another one we're going to be talking about later called Cyberrock's Opinions. And I like watching these videos talking about game design because I think they can help me give an idea of not only of what is the modern sensibilities of game design, but also gives me insight into how I should be treating my own favorite games like Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds is my favorite game. Obviously, I run a whole channel about it, but it does help me be more critical and more critical thinking about the way that we talk about the game, the way that we run the game as GMs, and that kind of then leads in actually to our discussion today. Is Savage Worlds broken, and why that feeling matters in the game? Why is that feeling of like the game being broken matter? So last week, and I'll go on, we'll move this. Last week I did a video called what do I call it? Let me fix my camera here for a second. There we go. Basically about whiff and ping. The idea that a whiff is when you try to hit someone with a high parry and you miss, and a ping being when you succeed at hitting them, but you don't do enough damage to actually wound them or even shake them. And this is I did this video because I see that question come up quite a bit in the Reddit, on Discord, on forums in the past. And this is not just a problem with the current edition of Savage Worlds. It's been a problem in previous editions as well. And I'm gonna start by saying, like, you all gave me amazing positive feedback, right? People did you guys were very supportive of the work. You guys said I just did a good job, and I seriously do appreciate that. I honestly went into, and I feel like this always happens with the videos that do well, is I went into publishing that video going, I don't think this video is going to do well. And it is of my top 10 of my past 10 videos, it's my top video, the past 10 videos I've published. Does not include live streams. That is only the videos I've published, and does not include shorts either, I don't believe. So I'm really excited. Thank you for your support. But that being said, I also posted this video to the Discord servers of What is Tabletop and Tales from Elsewhere. And one guy, Sabrock's Opinions, brought up some questions that I think were really important questions to ask. And so I'm just going to I'm going to show a screenshot here. He said, would you characterize people's inability to see the teamwork options you described and to blame the game for their characters' poor performance as a failure of the game to communicate expectations, or do you think the issue is purely cultural? Then said message here, clearly there's a disconnect between what players expect and what the game incentivizes. But I'm wondering, A, why that disconnect exists, and 2, can it be remedied? And I think this is a really important question because we do see this time after time after time again with people coming to the forums, to Reddit, to Discord, saying, "Hey, my players are really like struggling with this concept." And I think combat as a whole tends to be like the big thing that people talk about and complain about, mostly because a lot of RPGs are, and a lot of people who come to RPGs are expecting like one of the big things to be combat. So that's to be expected, right? I'm not like super concerned about like that particular issue. But let's talk about I do want to talk about like, okay, what is the expectation here? And though I did some research, I kind of got my thoughts down, and there's two ways that there's two questions that I think Cyberbuck's asking, right? Or really two options. He's asking, is the problem a cultural problem, the way that people come to role-playing games? Or is the problem pedagogy? And for those who don't know what the word pedagogy means, I had to look it up today. I've heard the word before. I probably did know the word meant at some point in my life, like in college. But it's basically the system in which something is taught, right? That's something, especially in an academic setting. So the question really is like, is Savage Worlds teaching players correctly about the options they have to work as a team and deal and to work as a team in combat for people and overcome problems? And that is, I think it's an important question. And there's kind of two things we can look at for that. The main thing we look at is just like looking at how like the rule book is laid out. And something that was brought to my attention in my research is that the rules for support roles and test roles. Oh, thanks, John. Technically, it's a system. Pedagogy is the system which to teach a child adult education is called andragogy. If that's accurate, that's a fair point. But I feel like that's all. I feel like people always talk about as pedagogy. I think pedagogy at that point pedagogy has become like the default word people use, even if it isn't a child. But nevertheless, or maybe people who are new to something. I think you could also like treat it as like a child of something. So like if you're a child in that you have never something new to you, you're a child in that like that mastery. So you could argue that's pedagogy. Either way, if you look at the book and you look at the combat section, tests and supports aren't anywhere in there. In fact, I believe they're technically under the situational rules area, which I tend to push people away from looking at those unless they need to, right? If you're learning the system, I tend to push people to, hey, don't worry about these situational rules until they come up. However, there is an important aspect. Yes, pedagogy, pedantry. Thank you, Travis. I appreciate that. Pedantry. That's the word I'm looking for. In that aspect, tests and supports, I think, are some of the most important pieces of Savage Worlds combat, or it can be, especially for people who are new to the game and want something that figure out how to do something, and especially for games where it's not necessarily about combat, because that is one of the things that we can see in Savage Worlds is that not every part of the game is about combat. There are a lot of genres that are about combat. There's a lot of genres who aren't about combat. And even if they like have combat, maybe the character tropes don't really lead to you to being caring about combat. So there's a piece there as well. Yeah. So the first thing is like those two pieces, the specifically the problems of whiff and ping, or support and tests aren't part of like the combat rules, and they're really kind of segmented away. But also something that I, in my research, kind of came up with is that realizing that the game of Savage Worlds doesn't really teach you how to win per se. It teaches you, hey, this is what you need to roll. This is like, it gives you like the pure mechanics of it. Here's the toughness. You have to roll above this to do a wound. You have to do, et cetera, et cetera, but doesn't really address how to play the game as far as like thinking about how we come to a combat encounter and saying, okay, this is the problem that we are facing. How do we solve it? I think the mechanics of the game kind of push us that direction, as I said in the video. If someone's combat is high, or someone's if someone's toughness is high, or uh, their parry is high, you're having a hard time getting around that. Mostly the toughness. I think the toughness is actually the bigger problem. I can get to that later. But if you have a problem like getting there, the game is telling you, hey, you need to do something else. You need to figure out another way to go about this. This is a problem that you need to overcome, not just by trying it over and over and over again. Admittedly, that could work eventually, but the game doesn't really necessarily want that. The problem is, though, is that the way the rulebook is written, I think, and you can argue something else, please do. I might be being too critical here, and I'm just trying to be honest, I guess. I think the book could be written in a way that's better showcasing the way that you can play the game. As far as like, showing, not necessarily showing it. I tend to skip parts of the books, right, where they show an example, unless I don't understand the example, like, or I don't understand the rules. I need to read the explainer, the like example, to make sure I understand how the rule works. I don't have that problem with style drills. I understand how the rules work for the most part. I'm always shocked by certain things here and there. But I think that there is something to say that like you might need to address, like, hey, if you're having this problem, if you can't hit this person's toughness, if you can't hit this person's parry, here are the options that you can do to try to overcome that, either sing, on your own or as a team. Teaching things like gang bonuses, which I believe is also maybe in the situational rules away from the combat section, stuff like that. The other side of the coin is the cultural. And actually, I think there's actually, I guess, a third side. I think that Cyberpunk wasn't asking about this, but I think there is a third side. And it tends to be more to do with like player psychology, but we'll get to that. The second thing is the cultural approach to the game. What I mean by that is a lot of people are coming to Savage Worlds from other game systems, and a lot of other game systems are attrition based, mainly D&D, Pathfinder, those kinds of games, even Shadowdark. They are games where you hit, and if you succeed, you're going to roll damage, and you're going to do at least so much damage. You're going to, even if you like roll snake eyes on your damage rolls, you're doing at least 2 damage, or if you only have 1 die, 1 damage. You have a minimum amount of damage you can do. And even if you, quote unquote, even if you succeed and it's not much, and I think this is one of the arguments people said, it's like, hey, you can still ping in D&D, it just looks like a very little bounce of damage. Well, to most people, that's still progress, right? It's like, oh, that sucks, but at least I did something. And it feels better than if they were to just completely miss the roll entirely. If they rolled and just like, I missed, okay, move on. At least they did something. They contributed something. Whereas in Savage Worlds, if you roll too low, you literally do nothing. You may even succeed and then do nothing. And I don't think that's a problem with the game per se. I think I'm open. I should say I am open to discussions about that to see if there is something that we can do to change to fix that, if there's something we can do better. But I don't necessarily think it's a problem with the game. I do think it's just the way that we approach the game. And especially when we come from these other cultural contexts of like different games usually using some sort of attrition-based system. We are starting to see less and less attrition-based ways of doing things, but a lot of them have other things that they are doing to ensure even failure has some sort of level of success. Someone brought up Fate. I think about some other games like that are condition based, Tales from Elsewhere, things like that. I always even think about like if Daggerheart, because Daggerheart has like these like thresholds like Savage Worlds does, but I think the minimum damage you can do is like 1. Like you do at least 1 damage. So there's some things there, but I'm not sure how much that matters. Anyways, so people come into the game and they go, they know that they're used to things like D&D where you hit, you do damage, next person takes their shot, they hit, they do damage. And so some people are just used to that system, and that's what they try to do in Savage Worlds. And you can't play Savage Worlds like it's D&D or an attrition-based system because it's not one. There is more to it, right? So that's kind of like the caveat. And there is some, or not caveat, but that's like there is a thing there with that. For example, and I'm going to kind of show this off a little bit. This also comes with a little bit of a like understanding a being a game master and having a system mastery of the game as a game master, knowing what the game can do and what the rules are around it are for. I am going to be going over that in another video that I'm working on about the chaos of Savage Worlds and how you can actually like really use it to advantage, or even like using other players' chaos to in Savage Worlds to use it to your advantage. But I have had a few times where I've had players who either were not necessarily very focused on game mechanics. They were more focused on the narrative, or they were just completely new to role playing games entirely, who I was playing Savage Worlds with, and they would do things that were cool, but they didn't know what they were doing. What I mean by that is that they would say, "Hey, I want to do this. Is there anything that I can like get for that?" The one example I can really think of, this is from a player who did play D&D, actually played like a D&D way back in the day, but he played D&D with us, and then but the group that we were in was much more narrative focused, and he said, "Hey, like I'm this jungle boy, or Tarzan essentially, and I want to call out for some monkeys to jump onto this pirate boat and attack them." I said, "Okay, like absolutely, I want to take this idea," because he had this idea. He wants to call out. He wants to do something to try to get these monkeys to do this. I'm like, "Yes, we're going to do that." What I ended up using in that, as I tell them what we're going to do, didn't like kind of hide it from him. It's like, "Okay, we're going to make this a test. I want you to use your performance because that's what you want to do. You want to use this performance to perform something to convince the monkeys to come out of the jungle and to attack the pirate boat on the river." If you've played this adventure, you might know what adventure this is. And I said, "Hey, you're going to do a test. You're going to roll your performance, and it's going to be resisted by the pirates. I guess that'd be spirit. Yeah, spirit. And that's going to be the test." And it did a great job. I even actually just used it as even though he technically didn't have the edge for it, I just said, "You know what, we're going to do a blast template. The monkeys are," because I love the idea so much, right? I love the idea so much. I said, "You know what, even though there's an edge for this, I'm just going to say, because of this one time, I'm just going to let you go ahead and do it and like let you have all the monkeys, let you do a blast template to affect all the pirates." And that was one of these really cool things where, because I knew how the system worked, I could take this narrative approach that he had and say, "Yes, you can do this, and you can go ahead and you're going to have this like big impact on the combat. You're going to make everybody either vulnerable or distracted." And he maybe made them shaken. So it was like a really strong move, right? So that was awesome. But people who are familiar with the system, or people who are come into the game at a mechanical level instead of a narrative level, tend to just do that. They tend to be more, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and just attack it, and I want to have that, having that cultural context, the cultural background of I come from games where we just all attack." There's some other games out there that do it a few different ways. Talking to one of my friends who's really into OSR games, especially like small OSR games, not big ones, but small ones with less rules. And the game he loves is called Cairn. And in Cairn, if multiple people attack, you don't all get to do damage. You all technically succeed, but you all roll damage. And the only damage applied is whoever rolled the most damage on those dice. So if I attack and my friend attacks, and we both roll damage, and whoever rolls higher damage, that's the damage that's applied. It's good because it gives like an advantage on the damage. But if everyone does it, it doesn't really help anything. The game encourages you to go, "Okay, hey, only some people can really attack. Go do the things." And so that does come down. It has a built-in way of kind of like at the forefront of preventing you from all just attacking and kind of pushing people a very in your face way of saying, "Hey, you should do other things in combat besides just attack." So that's that. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but it was just something that I think is important when it comes to like how we think about game design. Um, yeah. So yeah, so I guess my point was just that like I like how it feels to me that people who come to the narrative side of things and with a game master that knows what they're doing, they can take what the players want to do narratively and put it into really like direct rules that can result in a more tactical combat. So the fact that you don't, I think that might be actually maybe the best thing that I really think about it is that like it's actually the more narrative you are, the more that you think about it tactically, narratively, tactically, or tactically, narratively, instead of mechanically, the more fun and maybe the more tactical it actually ends up being, uh, because you're not weighing all this other stuff. Um, but yeah, so that's the cultural side. And then the last side was some of the psychology side. Uh, some people said in the group that, or in the my comments, they said like they tried with Savage Worlds, their group, but they just can't get it for their people who have played D&D, their long-standing D&D group. They can't get people to commit because of this problem of whiffing and pinging. And talking in that conversation, he said no one would even think about even or even consider, like, even if they knew the rule existed, they wouldn't even consider taking their turn to give someone a +1 bonus to their funny roll. And I think I made a video about this, about teamwork and how, like, we need, like, push players to understand it. But sometimes we're not going to be able to. There's gonna be people who just either don't get it or just don't like it. They want their character to be the hero. They wanna take out bad guys. They wanna feel powerful. And that is there is a lot of people who are playing fantasy games because they want that power trip. They're not necessarily, not only like, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean like it's a they're it's that's their, I guess, like, power fantasy is what they're the word I'm looking for. They're looking to be strong people doing crazy things, and maybe less worried about the story that they're portraying through the characters. Not saying you can't do both, but they maybe tend to one to that like power fantasy kind of play style. So they wouldn't even consider doing these tests or supports because they're not things that they would want to do, right? They wouldn't consider that because that just doesn't seem fun to them. The other thing is that a lot of a lot of edges that people want to take tend to be the combat edges. And so what can end up happening is that if they take edges like frenzy, like sweep, like I'll say counterattack, things like that, or two gun kid, they're going to want to attack. That's the thing they're going to want to do. And they're not going to want to waste their edges that they've taken to do the thing that might help someone else do the thing they want to do. And so that's one of the problems that we can see is that the the game is kind of pushing them because of the edges, because of the edges they've taken. The game itself, in a way, not because of any fault of the game necessarily itself, but because the choices that the game provided the players and that the players took, they are going to take those edges, and they're going to want to use them, which is understandable. If you took the edge, you want to use it. You want to be in situations where you're going to use your edge. In our current game, one of my players took the bounty hunter edge, and it's been it's come up. I don't think at all yet. Technically, it could have come up, but didn't really consider the fact that what was going on and what the role was for and that kind of stuff. And that's a little bit on me for not thinking about, oh, hey, this is a direct application of your edge. And I'm gonna let you do this thing instead of letting the other player do this thing. So a little bit on me. Uh, but but yeah, so I think that's the I apologize for me kind of stumbling over our words here. There is a psychological effect of the game can have that prevents players from being um, more involved with the supporting actions or the testing or more of the other tactical options are in Savage Worlds. Occasional Dabbler says tactical is not always the same as doing damage. Tactics really need to include maximizing all the team's options, and I 100% agree. And that's the problem isn't really the game isn't tactical. The player, it's just that the game doesn't. The problem is the players aren't being tactical. The question is why, right? Why are players not being tactical? And the part of it is that the game, like the fact that there is an option. I realize that there's actually like two questions here that I'm trying to answer. So we'll get to that in a moment. The oh goodness, I think through now. So the one part of the problem is how are we teaching our players and how's the game teaching players to work as a team. I think there is something there, and think something that Cyberrock is saying that is legitimate. Is there something going on that Savage Worlds needs to address to ensure that players are utilizing those options and they're being tactical in their combat in those moments? There's another thing to be said, though, about the failure state, in that the there is a possibility of someone doing damage and not doing anything, right? They apply damage and it ends up not being their toughness, and the feel bads, right? Play in a lot of modern game design, this is becoming more and more popular as like, this is not really a thing. You always progress the game state, even if you fail. So what does failure look like? How does that change the state? I don't necessarily think it's a problem for Savage Worlds per se. I think the biggest problem for Savage Worlds is that you can get past the parry, which feels like, hey, I hit him. That's great. Now roll damage. And now nothing's happened, right? You had an immediate success followed by an immediate failure, and that can understandably feel bad. I don't have a solution for that. I don't know if the game really needs a solution for that. But I can understand the feelings behind it, and understanding like, okay, the player is going to feel bad because they succeeded and then they failed. Yes, that is what bennies are for. Bennies are here to help that. Yes, we can mitigate it with other opportunities like called shots and wild attacks. But the initial element, official hit, in which they fail, that does feel bad. I did see one setting rule someone had proposed of where I think the way it was like, if you fail your fighting roll, if you just miss them, the fighting roll, so if you whiff essentially, you can spend a benny to turn that fighting roll into a test. I personally don't actually think the bigger problem. I think the bigger problem is when you roll damage and you don't do anything. So being able to spend a penny to turn that fighting roll into a test still would be very fun, but I don't know if it's really worth the penny, if I'm honest. But yeah, so I think there's some psychological thing there. I think there's something that we can address. I think that's the thing else I was going to say too. Or what it was. Oh, the other thing actually has more to do with us as game masters and how we run our scenes. If you go watch the TPK 101 videos that I've done with Pete Saloom from Pear Tree Studio, we talk about designing encounters in ways that are interactive. If your combat is just, there's a bad guy here, or I'm here, and we're just fighting it out, it's going to actually be kind of boring. Even if you succeed, even if you like have crazy good luck and you have no problems defeating the bad guy, it's just so boring combat. It might as well be a quick encounter. Making the success state, hey, we killed the bad guy, is kind of boring. We should be adding more to our scenes, more to the game that makes it more interesting. If you want the players to work together on a problem, one of the ways to do that is to introduce other goals inside that scene, so that they have to go do those things to work together. Hey, I'm gonna hold off the bad guy. You're gonna go do this. Those kind of things. Oh shoot, you're having a hard time. Do I stop helping this person who's bleeding on the floor and try to help you, or do I just keep helping the person? Those kind of things. Adding drama to the scene really is where Savage Worlds needs to be. We don't want to have these kind of like nonsense combats that don't have a narrative impact on the story. So, yeah. So all that being said, and I think people kept saying this in the comments of the video, is that right? You don't play Savage Worlds like D&D. You got to play it like Savage Worlds. That goes to the game master as well. Is essentially what I'm trying to say when it comes to those scene things. You can't run your Savage Worlds games like you're running a D&D game. You can absolutely take the stories that are in our other D&D games, but you're going to need to adjust them, adjust the scenes, adjust the combats, adjust it so that it makes more narrative sense, more pulp action adventure sense, not attrition. Got to get so many fights in per day to whittle down your resources type of game, right? There are two different kinds of games, and there's the Savage Worlds game, there's a D&D game. You got to make sure you understand how Savage Worlds is positioned to make a more interesting and fun game. And that starts with the game master giving the right scenes and the right challenges to the players. I think I've talked long enough. Let me take my notes real quick and see if I missed anything. So with that scene thing, I was saying basically like talking about like the game master. The word I use here in my notes actually is the problem narrative. Are we having a narrative problem? Is the problem that people are having when they play D&D or play Savage Worlds is that they're not being narrative enough? And every game should be narrative, right? I think every TTRPG should have a narrative element to it. But I think a lot of games that even when you do, they still work even when you don't have a narrative or a good narrative, but the combat still works. But I think Savage Worlds needs more narration than other games in order to get the feel that the game works best in. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's the thing I covered though. So let me hear your comments down below. Let's see if I can see anything in here. Vingle says it's like when James Bond strikes Jaws, he has to use other things to overcome Jaws. I don't know if I've seen that one, so sorry. Occasional Dabbler says I like to lean into comics and film visuals where bullets just bounce off the armor. Providing some dramatic imagery helps. Yeah, and I think that definitely helps. Is that again focusing on the narration? We as GMs need to narrate better. There is definitely a big call on GMs and Savage Worlds to be good at narration, and it's a skill that I think a lot of us are working on. I know it's one I'm working on. I mean, you think every GM would sit there want to get better at their ability to narrate the stories and stuff. But it's definitely one that I know that I need to work on. A lot of these videos, when I write them, I tend to be talking to myself. There's this when I went to seminary, one of the things that we talked about is how preachers are often preaching to themselves, and the congregation is just hearing the sermon out loud, right? The preacher talking to himself out loud, essentially. And I feel like that's the way I kind of go about my videos sometimes, is that I'm writing these videos to myself to tell me, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, and I'm just letting you guys all know what I'm doing wrong through them, so that you can learn from them as well. All right. John Doom, you said you're heading for a walk. Hey, have a good walk. I don't remember where you're at right now, but at least here it was, I think, -1 yesterday morning, and today it was 48 Fahrenheit for our European friends. So big jump. Everything's melting. Let's see here. Anything else? That's perfect pulp. Yep. Then that's what people keep saying about Savage Worlds, the perfect pulp. One of the things I did see though, people talking about when it came to the idea of Savage Worlds being good for pulp, is that in pulp, combats are rapidly changing. Things are changing all the time. I think, and so when things become static, where it's like I hit and do nothing, and nothing changes, that is the opportunity for us as GMs to change the scene. If nothing's changed between the players and the antagonist, their enemy, the scene needs to change somehow. Something needs to happen in the game that needs to change. And there's a video. So the video I've been working on, I spent most of my time working on today, is stealing some rules from some other games or one particular game. And I think there's some rules in that game that are going to help us kind of automate the scene changes, automate the way that the game changes throughout the combat. So look forward to that. There's some other things that are coming out. I think that's one of the things that I could really use some help on. I think this will help other people as well, is seeing how we can automate the game so that it kind of, I'll say, runs itself, right? So that we can like have our monsters, our enemies, our combats run themselves, and they only react depending on what's happened already. All right. Well, I want to thank you all so much for hanging out today and talking this through with me. I know this was a little bit different than usual, a little more of a deep dive into like my thought process around what's been happening around my most recent video. I love seeing the responses. I've done this once before where I kind of like responded to people's responses. This one I felt like I really wanted to kind of talk about, because this is a real problem that people said like, hey, I have this problem and it is a game breaker for me and we can't play Savage Worlds because of it. And that's, disheartening. And but I don't want to take those lightly, right? I don't want to just ignore them. I think if there is a real problem, we need to think about how, as a community, we can address it. And I think people have tried to address it. I think there's a lot of options out there. Part of the problem with the community is there is so many things that we have written that it is hard to be able to keep up with it all. So I will be doing my best and I have a lot of content to get through. Books to read, setting rules, that kind of things. but I'm excited to do that with you all. So next week we will do Deadlands. We'll go through the Kickstart Deadlands, and the week after, I believe it's the week after. I want to double check my calendar. I believe the week after, the 24th, we're going to be starting late. We're going to be starting at 9:30, which is very late for me. But we're going to be starting at 9:30. We're going to have Brandon from Star Anvil Studios on, and we're going to be talking about Phase World. So look forward to that. And with that, I hope you all have a great week. I hope you have some good weather. Enjoy if you're in the U.S. and you're having beautiful weather like we are here in Pittsburgh, enjoy the beautiful weather. And until next time, everybody, stay savage.